Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and I rise today to speak about cities. The electorate of Lalor is one of the fastest growing electorates in the country. The bulk of the electorate is in the city of Wyndham, which has grown from a population of 90,000 people a decade ago to a population of over 200,000 today. It has gone from the Shire of Werribee, known as the country suburb, surrounded by green wedges, to a city butting up against the city of Hobsons Bay. In this place, I note high recognition for Werribee, but most members of this place would not recognise the city of which Werribee is now the centre. Deputy Speaker, people come to live in Wyndham because it is affordable and because it is welcoming. It is now home to people from 120 countries of origin. Young couples come from other suburbs, often closer to the city, to build their first home. Families come to build their second, larger home. This growth brings challenges, not least of which, Deputy Speaker, is city policy. With the right policies in place, Melbourne's West and Wyndham can be at the centre of 21st century Australian innovative industry. With the right policies in place, the outer suburbs and growth corridors of our cities, including Wyndham, can be places of equity rather than disadvantage. Deputy Speaker, Australia is the world's most urbanised nation, and cities matter. They're home to 4 out of 5 Australians and produce 80% of our GDP. But let's be honest, we have wasted 2 years under this government and 10 years were wasted under John Howard with no clear city policy. And 2 years is a long time in a growth corridor. And I question today, despite this private member's business motion, whether the Turnbull government has a plan for sustainable, livable cities. And I do that, I question that, because I stand today following the Shadow Minister for Infrastructure and Cities, the member for Grayndler, and I follow the member for Perth, because Labor has a plan for cities. And in opposition, we have maintained our focus on cities. I stand here a member of the Caucus Committee for Cities. Sitting behind me, the member for Scullin, who chairs that caucus committee. We have been out talking about cities for 2 long years, while this government has done nothing about city policy. And in where I live, and where the people I represent live, that's 2 long years without any policy. Deputy Speaker, many will have spoken about the limitations and inequity that are built in our cities while we ignore city policy. The book City Limits by Jane Frances Kennedy and Paul Donegan highlights some of the issues being faced in the electorate of Lalor and other growth corridors across this country. It identifies that more than 50% of people are moving to suburbs over 20 kilometres from the CBDs in our country. That's where I live, Deputy Speaker. It highlights the emerging drive-in, drive-out suburbs that we're developing, which is having a huge impact on the balance of family life for people living in my electorate. Allowing such a trend to continue leads to entrenched inequity. I have mentioned this in speech after speech after speech, Deputy Speaker. Labor in government addressed these issues. In government, we delivered the regional rail link, which has made such a difference in my electorate. It was funded $3 billion provided by the former Labor government, the biggest Commonwealth investment in any public transport project in the nation's history. On top of that, Labor has understood the importance of city development and city policy. We had RDAF funding, major infrastructure projects in regions. We had Labor working with state and local governments delivering much-needed infrastructure in growth corridors. But under this government, we now have a Prime Minister who is in charge of delivering one of the most important infrastructure projects this country has seen, the NBN, and has failed on the promises he made. He has taken longer and stretched out the delivery time and increased the cost of that project. Deputy Speaker, I stand here a proud member of the Labor caucus, a proud member who can say that under a Labor government we will deliver for cities, because we have already done the policy work on cities. We have the runs on the board for cities. Our approach will be evidence-based, using business cases to leverage private sector funding. Our $10 billion infrastructure financing facility will unlock billions of dollars in the private sector to build the cities that we need for the future, to ensure that the people who live in my electorate are not disadvantaged by the number of kilometres they live from Melbourne CBD.
Hear, hear.